On Oscar night 2022, Will Smith slapped Chris Rock after Chris made a crack about Jada's hair.
I could tell it bothered you. You did an eye roll.
Right. Yeah, and I did that eye roll not so much for me.
Jada Pinkett Smith is now facing a $3 million lawsuit from Will Smith's former friend Bilal Salam, who claims she threatened him with the words, "You'll catch a bullet," during a heated confrontation. After years of public appearances, red carpets, and interviews alongside Will Smith, this explosive legal filing reveals a much darker side to their relationship dynamics. Let that sink in. One of Hollywood's most talked about couples, now embroiled in a lawsuit that alleges death threats, NDA demands, and a retaliatory campaign designed to silence a whistleblower. But this wasn't just a simple dispute. Because as the lawsuit details emerged, including Jada's recent motion to dismiss under California's anti-SLAPP statute, the story began connecting back to their previously revealed separation and the Academy Awards incident in ways no one expected. And suddenly, everything people thought they knew about their private struggles started to make sense in a completely different context.
And be willing to hold space in the way that Will holds space for me, and the way that I hold space for him.
Because the deeper you look into this lawsuit and their relationship, the more complicated it becomes. For years, Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith were seen as one of Hollywood's strongest couples. They spoke openly about their bond, their family, and the way they approached marriage differently from most people. On the surface, everything looked intentional, even unconventional at times, but still solid. That's why the recent lawsuit filed by Bilal Salam caught so many people off guard. According to the civil complaint, brother Bilal claims that after he began working on a whistleblower memoir about his experiences, Jada confronted him at Regency Calabasas Commons in September 2021, allegedly telling him he'd catch a bullet if he continued. Think about that. A threat allegedly made during what Salam describes as an intimidation campaign, designed to silence him from revealing certain truths. Jada explained that she and Will had actually been living separate lives for years, despite still appearing together publicly. Red carpets, interviews, major events, all of it continued as if nothing had changed. But according to this lawsuit, behind the scenes there was allegedly much more going on than just a private separation. Because while they were privately separated, they were also allegedly working together to manage various crises and protect their public image through what Salam claims were threatening tactics. That decision not to officially divorce is where a lot of confusion begins, and it's also central to Bilal Salam's allegations in his $3 million lawsuit.
There's no greater mirror I could have than Will. I can't get around myself, just like he can't get around himself with me.
According to Jada Pinkett Smith, the relationship didn't end in the traditional sense. Instead, it shifted into something more complicated, a kind of partnership that didn't follow the usual rules people expect from a marriage. But Salam's legal filing paints a different picture of that partnership. He claims it became a coordinated effort to silence anyone who might expose uncomfortable truths about their private arrangements, including alleged demands for non-disclosure agreements and what he describes as intentional infliction of emotional distress. She described their separation as a conscious choice, not a clean break, not a public announcement, but a private understanding between two people who had built a life together over decades. But according to the lawsuit, that private understanding allegedly extended to intimidating former friends who knew too much. And that's what makes this legal situation so explosive, because while most couples would separate and move on publicly, Jada and Will Smith continued showing up side by side, while allegedly working behind the scenes to control what information became public. But behind the scenes, everything had changed. And according to Salam, that included a willingness to threaten former friends. And that raises a bigger question. Why keep the separation private for so long? And what lengths were they allegedly willing to go to protect that secret? According to Jada Pinkett Smith, part of the reason they kept the separation private was because they weren't ready to explain it, not to the public, and not even fully to themselves. Their relationship had reached a point where the traditional definition of marriage no longer fit, but ending it completely didn't feel right either. But Bilal Salam's lawsuit suggests there was another reason for the secrecy: crisis management. The civil complaint alleges that after the Academy Awards slap incident in 2022, there was an escalation in efforts to control the narrative, with Salam claiming the alleged threats intensified as part of a broader retaliatory campaign. So instead, they chose to keep moving forward, just differently. They stayed connected. They remained partners in certain ways, But emotionally and personally, they were no longer operating as a typical couple.
Would it be easier to go and find somebody else and have a more pleasing, more comfortable relationship? Maybe. But would that get me to the person that I really want to be? I don't think so.
Yet according to the lawsuit, they were allegedly operating as partners in managing potential scandals and silencing critics. And that decision created a kind of dual reality. In public, Will Smith and Jada still looked united. They appeared together at major events, spoke about each other in interviews, and continued presenting an image of stability. But privately, the foundation of their relationship had already shifted, and according to Salam's allegations, that shift included tactics he claims were designed to intimidate and silence. And the longer that gap existed between their public image and private reality, the more desperate the alleged efforts to maintain control became. Because eventually, that hidden dynamic would collide with one of the most talked about moments in recent pop culture history. That moment came during the Academy Awards in 2022. On live television, millions of viewers watched as Will Smith walked onto the stage and slapped comedian Chris Rock. Within seconds, the incident became one of the most shocking moments in award show history. At the time, the public reaction focused on what everyone could see. A joke had been made, a line had been crossed, and Will Smith responded in a way no one expected. But according to Bilal Salam's lawsuit, that Academy Awards incident became a turning point that allegedly led to an escalation in the crisis management efforts. He claims included death threats. The lawsuit suggests that the negative publicity from the Oscars slap created additional pressure to silence potential whistleblowers like Salam, who had been working on revealing certain aspects of their private arrangements. Because it wasn't just a husband reacting in defense of his wife, it was something more complicated. Two people who were no longer together in the traditional sense, still connected in a way that led to a reaction seen around the world. And according to the lawsuit, allegedly willing to threaten former friends to protect their secrets. And that raises an uncomfortable question. If their relationship had already changed behind the scenes, what exactly was Will reacting to protect in that moment? And what lengths would they allegedly go to keep certain information private? According to Jada Pinkett Smith, even she was surprised by what happened that night. When Will Smith walked onto the stage.
So poor Will because of
The adulterous wife.
Yeah.
Who forced him to go to the table and sit there, you know what I mean? And now look at what she's done. She has the power with an eye roll to make him go up and slap somebody on stage.
She initially thought it was part of the show. That's how unexpected it was. But Bilal Salam's lawsuit paints the aftermath of that incident as anything but surprising. He claims it triggered a calculated campaign of intimidation. The civil complaint alleges that following the Academy Awards controversy, efforts to silence him intensified, including the alleged September 2021 confrontation, where Jada supposedly told him he'd catch a bullet. Jada has since filed an anti-slap motion to dismiss, calling Salam's claims completely fabricated and nonsense, arguing that his lawsuit is designed to extract money through false allegations. Jada later explained that despite everything they had gone through, there was still a deep connection between them, not necessarily a traditional marriage, but something that kept them tied together emotionally. But according to the lawsuit, that connection allegedly extended to coordinating efforts to manage their public image through intimidation tactics. And that connection may help explain not just why Will reacted the way he did, but why Salam claims they were willing to allegedly threaten him to maintain their secrets. Not out of obligation, but out of something deeper. Something that hadn't disappeared even after their relationship had changed, and according to the allegations, something that allegedly motivated threats against former friends. And that's what makes this lawsuit story harder to define, because it doesn't fit neatly into the idea of a couple that's either together or apart. It exists somewhere in between, and according to Salam's claims, allegedly in a space where intimidation and threats were part of protecting that ambiguous status. As more of Jada Pinkett Smith's revelations came out, the public reaction started to shift. What initially seemed like a shocking moment at the Academy Awards was now being re-examined through a completely different lens. But now, with Bilal Salam's $3 million lawsuit adding another layer.
And I think this is really important, but the fact that there could be a jab at alopecia.
Will then went on a profane tirade warning Chris not to mention his wife's name.
People are asking even more pointed questions. If Jada and Will Smith had been separated for years, why did they continue presenting themselves as a united couple? Why keep that part of their lives private while sharing so many other personal details publicly? And according to Salam's allegations, why were they allegedly willing to threaten former friends who knew about their private arrangements? For some, the answer felt confusing. For others, it felt intentional, because maintaining that image meant controlling the narrative around their relationship. It allowed them to define what their partnership looked like on their own terms, even if it didn't match traditional expectations. But according to the lawsuit, that control allegedly came with threats and intimidation tactics, including demands for non-disclosure agreements and what Salam describes as a retaliatory campaign. But that control came with a cost. The longer the truth stayed hidden, the more surprising the reveal became. And once it was finally out in the open, it forced people to reconsider everything they thought they understood about their marriage. And now with this lawsuit alleging threats and intimidation, that shift in perception has become even more dramatic. And that shift in perception is what turned a personal story into a much bigger conversation about alleged abuse of power and intimidation. That conversation quickly expanded beyond just Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith. It started touching on a bigger idea. What does a relationship actually look like when it doesn't follow traditional rules? And what happens when protecting that unconventional arrangement allegedly involves threats? For years, Jada had been open about unconventional dynamics. She spoke about growth, independence, and redefining what partnership means over time.
Jada couldn't believe what she was hearing.
What is going on? Now, first of all, I'm really shocked because, mind you, I'm not there. We haven't called each other husband and wife in a long time.
But now, with the confirmation that they had been separated while still presenting as a couple, combined with Salam's serious allegations, those ideas felt more complex and potentially more troubling. The lawsuit also connects to broader Hollywood dynamics, with Salam's claims touching on actors like Dwayne Martin and suggesting a pattern of behavior designed to silence inconvenient voices. Salam has also made appearances on platforms like Tasha K's Unwind podcast, where he's discussed his allegations publicly, adding another dimension to the story. Because this wasn't just theory anymore, it was their reality, and according to the lawsuit, allegedly a reality that included intimidation tactics. Some people saw the separation revelation as honesty finally coming to the surface. Others viewed it as a blurred line between public image and private truth. But with the lawsuit allegations, that divide has become about something much more serious than just public relations. It's about alleged abuse of power and threats. And that divide is what made the story resonate far beyond celebrity gossip. It forced people to question something deeper. How much of what we see in public relationships is actually real? And what are some celebrities allegedly willing to do to control that narrative? And in the case of Jada and this lawsuit, that question doesn't have a simple answer. As the story continued to unfold, more people began revisiting past moments involving Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith. Interviews, public appearances, and even episodes of her talk show started to look different in hindsight. But now, with Bilal Salam's allegations in the mix, those past moments carry an even more serious undertone.
I'm like, what is going on right
keep
now?
my wife's name
out of your mouth, right? And I'm like, but now I'm really worried for Will because I don't know what's going on.
Things that once seemed open and transparent now felt layered, and according to the lawsuit, potentially calculated to maintain a certain image while allegedly silencing dissenting voices. Conversations about personal growth, discussions about relationships evolving, even moments that hinted at distance between them, all of it began to take on a new meaning. Because now there was context, and according to the lawsuit, allegedly disturbing context about what was happening behind the scenes. The idea that they had been living separate lives while maintaining a shared public image changed how those past moments were interpreted. What once looked like vulnerability now felt like only part of the story. And according to Salam's allegations, it was allegedly a story being protected through intimidation and threats. And that realization added another layer to the narrative. Because it wasn't just about what was revealed, it was about what had been kept private for so long. And according to the lawsuit, allegedly what methods were used to keep it private. And that raises an even bigger question. If this much of their story stayed hidden for years, and if Salam's allegations about intimidation tactics are true, what else might people have missed? The timing of these revelations is what makes the story even more interesting, especially when viewed alongside the timeline in Bilal Salam's lawsuit. Jada Pinkett Smith didn't share information about their separation in the moment it happened. She waited years before explaining what was really going on behind the scenes. But according to Salam's civil complaint, during that same period, he was allegedly being intimidated and threatened to keep quiet about what he knew. And that delay matters, because during that time, the public formed its own narrative about her relationship with Will Smith. The Oscars incident became a defining moment. The headlines shaped how people viewed both of them. And without the full context, those interpretations stuck. Meanwhile, according to the lawsuit, Salam claims he was being subjected to what he describes as intentional infliction of emotional distress and retaliatory behavior.
Everybody's always like,
Yeah.
why don't you just get divorced?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's like quitting. I don't think there's any person that could embrace the best and the worst of me.
Now, with new details coming out alongside serious legal allegations, that narrative is being challenged on multiple fronts. What people thought was a straightforward situation is turning out to be far more layered. A relationship that looked stable was actually evolving privately. A moment that seemed like a clear reaction now feels more complex. And according to the lawsuit, allegedly all of it was being protected through intimidation tactics that Salam claims included death threats. And that shift is forcing people to reconsider everything. Because when the truth comes out years later through both revelations and legal filings, it doesn't just add information. It changes the meaning of what everyone thought they already understood and raises serious questions about alleged abuse of power. At this point, the story surrounding Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith isn't just about a single revelation or even a separation. It's about how their relationship has been understood and misunderstood over time, and now about serious legal allegations that paint a much darker picture. Because what we're seeing now is a version of their story that was never fully visible before, combined with lawsuit allegations that suggest some people were allegedly threatened to keep it that way. A marriage that didn't follow traditional rules, a separation that wasn't announced, a partnership that continued in public while changing in private. And according to Bilal Salam's $3 million lawsuit, allegedly a willingness to intimidate and threaten former friends who knew too much. And that complexity is what makes it difficult to define.
And Chris looks to me and he says, Jada, I meant no harm. Now, I'm just out of it because I'm really worried about Will.
Jada has responded to the lawsuit with an anti-SLAPP motion to dismiss, arguing that Salam's claims are false and designed to extract money. Her legal team calls the allegations completely fabricated and nonsense. Some people see the separation revelation as honesty finally coming to light. Others see it as a carefully managed narrative that only revealed certain pieces at certain times. But with the lawsuit allegations adding claims of threats and intimidation, the stakes have become much higher than just public perception. But regardless of how it's interpreted, one thing is clear. The way their relationship has been presented to the world doesn't fully match what was happening behind the scenes. And according to serious legal allegations, maintaining that gap allegedly involved threatening people. And now that the gap between those two realities has been exposed, along with explosive lawsuit claims, the story feels far from finished. In the end, the story of Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith isn't as simple as people once thought. What looked like a long-standing Hollywood marriage turned out to be something far more complicated behind the scenes. A private separation, a public image that stayed intact, and moments like the Academy Awards incident that now carry a completely different meaning with this new context. But now, with Bilal Salam's $3 million lawsuit alleging death threats, NDA demands, and a retaliatory campaign, the story has taken on an even darker dimension. The lawsuit claims Jada told Salam he'd catch a bullet during a confrontation at Regency Calabasas Commons, while Jada's anti-SLAPP motion to dismiss calls these allegations completely fabricated. It challenges not just the idea that relationships, especially in the public eye, fit into clear categories, together or not, married or separated, but also raises serious questions about what some celebrities might allegedly be willing to do to protect their secrets. In this case, it's something that exists in between traditional categories, and according to the lawsuit, allegedly protected through intimidation. And that's what keeps people talking. Because once you realize how much of their story was kept private, combined with allegations about how that privacy was allegedly maintained, it raises bigger questions about power, celebrity, and accountability. How much of what we see is real? How much is carefully managed? And what happens to people who allegedly threaten to expose the difference? What do you think about Bilal Salam's explosive allegations and Jada's motion to dismiss? Does the lawsuit change how you see their relationship? Or do you think these are false claims designed to extract money? Let me know in the comments.